want to read a little bit. This is interesting coming from the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal has a new editorial out overnight entitled "Pelosi Holds Up Small Business." This is getting old, they write. Tens of thousands of small businesses are headed for bankruptcy without short-term liquidity from the feds. The Trump administration offers to provide it, and Democrats on Capitol Hill refuse to support it without more money for their constituencies. The latest example concerns the $350 billion Paycheck Protection Program that was part of the $2.2 trillion CARES Act. The program offers forgivable loans to maintain payroll and cover overhead during the economic shutdown. Despite some technical hiccups, the program is already besieged by applications, and yet it looks like Nancy Pelosi trying to hold up expansion of this program. Should it be expanded? What does it do? The Paycheck Protection Plan. How does it particularly impact and benefit small businesses? What should folks keep in mind? Let's talk about this with Elaine Parker, who is the Chief Communications Officer of the Job Creators Network, and she joins us here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. Elaine, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Great to be here, Jimmy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time. So just give us the top line. What does the Paycheck Protection Program do?
The Paycheck Protection Program is actually a lifeline for the 30 million small business owners out there that are really on the forefront of this crisis as a result of the coronavirus. They've been driving our economy for the last 3 years, but unfortunately, they are taking the biggest hit as a result. And the Paycheck Protection Program provides 8 weeks of funding in a forgivable loan that they can use to make payroll and to keep their lights on, basically. And all they have to do is maintain their payroll during that 8 weeks, and the loan is simply forgiven. This is a lifeline for small businesses for the next 60 days so that we can kill this virus and get our economy back to work.
Now, in terms of the Paycheck Protection Program, how has it been rolling out so far, and why is there talk now of expanding it in a potential phase 4 measure?
So without a doubt, we've never, ever seen our government move this fast. We're talking about a $2.2 trillion bill total in the CARES Act, and just in the Paycheck Protection Program, $350 billion set aside for small businesses to apply for these forgivable loans. There's certainly been some hiccups in the program. I mean, they passed the bill in a few days. And then a few days later, they had guidelines out for banks on how to issue these loans. And there have been some hiccups, but they are working them out as quickly as they come to light, basically. We have small business owners who are members of Job Creators Network, and they're telling us that they are getting through the process, and the application process has been smooth. Many of them have told us it's been smooth. We've heard reports of some bumps in the road, but we've also heard on a continuous basis that Treasury is updating the guidelines to deal with some of those bumps in the road. You cannot issue $350 billion worth of money and not have some hiccups along the way. And what we know is that it's very popular because already $100 billion under the program has been committed, which is why at this rate, only a few days in, Republicans and in the Senate and the president is asking for more money to fund the program. They want to amend the CARES Act and add another $250 billion to it.
And Democrats seem to be trying to put a hold on that particular measure. Why? As there's a discussion more about this Phase 4 CARES Act program or bill, what is it that Democrats are trying to get for this, or do they not like the Paycheck Protection Program, or what? Do we know?
Jimmy, it's disgraceful. This is simply an amendment to a bill that everybody already agrees is a good bill and a very popular program. What they're trying to do is fund additional programs within the CARES Act that aren't running out of money. The only program that is running out of money is the Paycheck Protection Program. So this is to fill a hole, basically, to plug a hole. And they should have been able to pass this in 10 minutes and move on. We know that there's going to be a phase 4, that we can talk about other funding for other programs, But right now, the only program running out of money is the Paycheck Protection Program. And really, Senate Democrats' message to small business today was drop dead, because 30 million of them are out there and they need a lifeline. And that's exactly what this program was or is for small businesses to keep their employees paid. I mean, again, this week we had over 6 million people file for unemployment. So in the last 3 weeks, we've had 16 million people file for unemployment. You know how many jobs we're losing per hour? For every hour, we're losing 34,000 jobs an hour. For every hour that Democrats delay this aid, we're losing 34,000 jobs. Let that sink in for a second.
It is remarkable to think about. So this is not actually phase 4. So I misspoke before. It is just an amendment to add a little bit more funding to this program, because there's been so much demand from small businesses across the country who say, we want to keep workers on our payrolls, even if we're not able to do business right now because of the coronavirus pandemic. But in order to do that, we need some support.
Exactly. We're not at a phase 4 yet. We're simply at the Paycheck Protection Program is running out of money. And literally, I read the amendment. It is basically like one page, and it basically replaces $350 billion with $600 billion. That's it. There's no policy change. This bill's already been agreed to, passed, and signed. They're changing one number within an entire $2.2 trillion bill to help small business owners. We'll get to phase 4. We know there'll be a phase 4. But right now, we need to plug this hole for small businesses as fast as possible.
I would be more favorable to expanding the Paycheck Protection Program and not having a phase 4 at this point in time. I think it's a little premature for that discussion, but having some support additional for small businesses in this particular way, it does make sense to me. Have we been presented with an argument from the Democrats for why they are not wanting to approve this amendment to increase by $250 billion the Paycheck Protection Program, Elaine?
They're looking to fund other programs within the bill, within the current CARES bill, you know, whether it's hospitals or healthcare workers or additional money for individuals. Those are all, you know, you can argue whether or not those are good programs or not to fund, but those programs in the current $2.2 trillion bill are not running out of money. Only the Paycheck Protection Program is. So this amendment simply plugs a hole. That's why it should have been done in 10, 15 minutes, and we could have moved on and started talking about what other holes need to be plugged. But this one's immediate. We have 30 million small business owners that are closing their doors, not all of them, but on a regular basis. Every Friday that goes by, small business owners are making very tough decisions about their employees and whether or not they're going to lay them off. And we really think that this Paycheck Protection Program is a much better investment of taxpayer dollars to keep these employees paid through their employer and attached to their companies versus being paid by unemployment insurance. Because when this economy is ready to reopen and we kill this virus, it's going to be a much faster startup if all of these people are still attached to their companies.
Now, in terms of small business, can you give us, Elaine Parker, again, our guest, Chief Communications Officer for Job Creators Network, give us a sense for the scope of small businesses in America. How significant are they to the U.S. economy?
Small business, as I've mentioned, there's 30 million of them in this country. They employ half of our workforce. They have been driving this economy for the last 3 years. They create they create 2/3 of all new jobs. So their impact on our economy is tremendous. And we always say at Job Creators Network that small business is too big to fail. And we've spent the last few weeks working directly with Secretary Mnuchin and his team, as well as the White House and leadership in Congress, on developing this CARES Act and getting it through and making sure that small business was really at the center of the program, because, like I said, they are going to drive us out of this crisis. You know, once we get through the healthcare crisis, which has basically created an economic crisis, once we kill the first crisis, we will definitely be driven out of the second crisis by small business, because they create all the jobs.
It is important for all of us to keep in mind the role of small businesses, because there's a saying that small business is the backbone of the American economy, and it's so true. I know we often think of companies that are big, you go to Walmart or you go to the mall and see a lot of these bigger chains, but keep in mind that a lot of times even some of the big corporations have franchises that are small business owners that are not just a part of the company, but they're part of the company, but they have their own business, their own franchise, and that's, I think, critical to keep in mind as well in this discussion. In terms of small business, I mean, at some point, hopefully sooner than later, the American economy will reopen and we'll be able to get back to work. When that happens, what do you think policymakers should be keeping in mind looking ahead to be able to help strengthen small business, or in my view, even better, get out of the way of small businesses so that they can grow and prosper once again?
That's a great point. And really, what government has been doing through this entire crisis, led by the president, is they have been getting out of the way. And we've seen private enterprise step up and solve these problems, whether it's creating a vaccine and getting it to human trials in record time, or other companies stepping up and starting to build ventilators or face masks. I mean, all of these things are being done by private enterprise, but under government coordination, not government control. That has been a huge difference that we need to actually acknowledge, that it is private enterprise solving this problem. It is not government solving the problem. It is government getting out of the way. And as we look forward past this virus and this lifeline that we're giving to small businesses right now to keep them going, is we need to look at a Main Street Recovery Act, something very targeted to Main Street small business owners. And we've been advocating for a payroll tax holiday for small businesses under 100 employees to the end of the year, which will not only put more money back in employees' paychecks as we get the economy started and let them keep more of their hard-earned money, but it will allow small businesses to not only reinvest, but recover a lot faster as we get through this year and through all of this crisis.
Elaine Parker, again, our guest, Chief Communications Officer for Job Creators Network. Going back to the Paycheck Protection Program, I want to play cut 4 here. This is Senator Marco Rubio of Florida talking about this plan and some of the challenges of getting it expanded with additional funding. Again, already approved in the CARES Act, looking for additional funding. The challenges with the Democrats.
Points to make. Number one, yes, I think I fully understand that people out there are desperate and want this to work. So do I. I also think we have to have some perspective. This is a plan that was passed 2 weeks ago this Friday. It hasn't been 2 weeks yet. It was implemented 6 days later. Until Friday of this week, there wasn't a bank in America that had ever made a PPP loan, and there wasn't and the SBA had never made one. So this is a program rushed out in 6 days because we are in an emergency. When you have an emergency situation, it's chaotic. I know that from living through multiple hurricanes. You're managing the chaos at the same time as you're trying to get rid of the glitches that appear. And every day this program has gotten better. There are still some substantial obstacles in the way that need to be fixed. This can't be the way the program works long term. As far as the payroll is concerned, the point of the program, that's why it's called the Paycheck Protection Act, is to get money into the hands of small business so they can continue to pay their employees even if the business is not opening and running. And there is a portion of it that they can spend on rent, but we wanted the bulk of that money to make payroll so we can keep people off the unemployment lines and keep them from disconnecting from their employer.
Well, that's Senator Marco Rubio from Florida, and I wanted to play a snippet of that. Elaine Parker, your response or your thoughts on what Senator Rubio had to say?
He's absolutely right. And Senator Rubio and Senator Collins really fought for small business and developed this Paycheck Protection Program. So I commend their leadership on really putting small business at the forefront of this. But he's right. Rolling out a program of this magnitude in such a short time, you are going to hit bumps in the road, and we are hitting them. But they are dealing with them very fast and solving them on a daily basis. Already twice this week, Treasury has issued additional guidance to banks to solve problems that have come up. So they are listening continuously to banks, to small businesses. We're talking to them on a regular basis and giving them feedback on what our members are telling us about the process, and they are trying to solve the problems. We will get there, but we need now to actually fund the program because it is very popular, and small businesses recognize that this will not only help them fund some of their operations, but most importantly, it will help them keep their employees paid so that when this economy starts, again, we can start up much faster.
It is important to be able to have businesses revved up and ready to go when they're told, hey, green light to get back to work. Elaine Parker, final question for you from the Job Creators Network. How optimistic are you that some additional funding at least gets provided and the Democrats will say, okay, we'll go ahead and do it? Maybe not the $250 billion that's being asked for, but some additional measure, or do you think they're going to hold it up until they get something that they want?
Well, I hope that they don't hold it up, but this has been their game plan so far, as they see an opportunity to leverage for exactly what they want and hold out. And the reality is, this funding has to get to small businesses no matter what. We have to get it to them. So I think it will pass. I think it will pass, today or tomorrow. But it shouldn't be a fight. It shouldn't be like this at all. Small businesses, they are too big to fail, and we've got to get them the funding.
Elaine Parker, Chief Communications Officer for the Job Creators Network. Great to talk with you. Always appreciate a good conversation with JCN.
Thanks so much.
Stay well and stay healthy.
You too.
Once again, Elaine Parker with Job Creators Network joining us here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. I got to say, it really is. You look at this particular issue, it makes sense, the Paycheck Protection Act. There's a lot, protection program. There's a lot that is in the CARES Act that was approved that I think was grandiose, that was problematic, that shouldn't have been done. This is one that does make sense. It makes sense particularly because we're talking about these small businesses that are just trying to keep their people on payroll more than anything else. And clearly it is working, and it is the one program that, as Elaine was pointing out, has already been running out of money, which tells you that this one works and may be a bright spot amidst a CARES Act that I think is very deeply flawed. We're going to take a break.